This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Coming out of high school, he had great size and athleticism. It wasn't just about athleticism and size. It was also about his football smarts and his instincts. A really just good, well-rounded football player.
The guy has incredible work ethic, and that's the reason why he's so successful.
Intercepted! Right on cue, Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Quarterback pulls it down, intercepted by Alabama. He's going to go down the near sideline. Touchdown, Alabama!
Minkah's definitely one of the smartest football players I've ever been around. He knows what's going to happen before it happens.
The dude stays in the film room. I mean, if anything, I think he sleeps. I think he sleeps in the film room.
Alabama wins!
And we welcome you to another day. This is a special Thursday. Hope all is well wherever you are. We have a lot to deal with today. You saw Minkah Fitzpatrick at the top of the show, and there's a reason why we were talking about him and talking about his greatness. Because we're 2 weeks away from the draft, and the Bednarik and Thorpe winner is expected to go very high, one of the best defensive players we have seen in a long time in this part of the country, compared to the likes of Patrick Peterson and Charles Woodson, who only won a Heisman 21 years ago. Minkah picked up 2 national championships, a near miss, and many memories as he gets ready to head to the NFL. And we say hello to you out there in TV and radio land, and we say hello to Minkah Fitzpatrick up in Connecticut. Minkah, listen, I think I woke up with you. I don't mean that literally. And I'm talking to you now some 8 or 9 hours later. You have made the rounds. You started the day in New York. Yeah. You're now at ESPN in Connecticut. Good afternoon, and take us through your day. Must have been pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's been a fun day. I started off in New York. I started on the Get Up show out there, and now I drove over to Bristol, Connecticut, and I'm having a good time just talking to people, doing different shows, and answering a whole lot of questions. I'm having a good time, though.
I know you're a young man that's been everywhere from the White House to national championships and hanging around Nick Saban, but I'm always interested in this as someone who sees the other side of ESPN and media. Take us through maybe 1 or 2 people that you met today that you were impressed by.
I mean, just everybody here. Everybody's really, really open. They're asking a lot of questions that are even related to football. Asking a lot of questions off the field stuff. Just really want to get to know me as a person, not just as a player. And it's been cool just getting to meet new people from all over the place, from California, New Jersey, New York, Florida. And it's just really interesting seeing all the different types of people. Okay,
I lost money, Minkah. Laura Rutledge bet me that you would name her first, since she interviewed you 2 hours ago, so now I'm in trouble. Anyway, all kidding aside, let's talk about the most important stuff, not the people you're meeting today, but what you will be doing in 2 weeks. And you've met with so many different people connected to the NFL. You're projected to go extremely high. Tell us what you know in terms of the teams that you've met with and feel comfortable with. I know you just want to go, but take us through that process as well.
This has been a whole lot of fun. I've been traveling. I visited 3 different teams: Chicago, Tampa, and San Francisco. Just talked to the coaches, talked to the owners and the GMs, and just asked them questions. They asked me questions. Got a feel for them. Got to know me a little bit better. And you just enjoying the whole process. It's been a whole lot of fun, and it's once in a lifetime type of opportunity. So I'm just taking it all in and doing what I can to enjoy it.
In a perfect world, maybe deep down you would like to go one place over another, but I know that's not the wisest thing to say right now, because you may say I want to go here and you could actually go higher. Do you have a preference? I'm not asking you for it, but I'm just curious deep down within.
Nah, honestly, it doesn't really matter to me. As long as I get the opportunity, I'm going to be happy. As long as I'm out there playing, able to make plays, staying healthy, I'm going to go out there and enjoy every minute of it.
Let's talk a little bit about your years at Alabama. I don't think it could have gone too much better. You were certainly one of the best players in recent Alabama history. You picked up 2 national titles. You played in 3 national championship games. As you reflect back, let's talk about some of the people that you've been around, and especially, and let's start with your coach, Nick Saban.
Oh man, it was an honor to be coached by somebody like him. He has 40+ years of experience in the game. I just soaked it all in. Just asked as many questions as I could. He challenged me a lot on and off the field as a player and as a person. So just being able to be coached by him it was an awesome experience. I learned a whole lot, and I enjoyed every single minute of it. We won a lot of games together, won some championships together, but it was a whole lot of fun.
Mink, I know you had a couple of different coordinators with Kirby and later with Jeremy, both of whom have gone on to head coaching positions. But we all know, and I've been to those practices, Nick Saban thinks that's his position, the one you played. How often did he come out and try to tell you how good he was at that position?
Oh, man, he would say it all the time. He wouldn't go a day without saying it. Every time we did a certain technique or a certain type of coverage, he would always say that he would be able to do it the best or better than anybody out there. And he took pride in it, and he believed it, which was the funny part. But, none of us
that is
believed
pretty
it.
funny.
We didn't think it was the truth.
Okay, you have to answer this question for us because you're now done with Alabama's. You dealt with both young quarterbacks, obviously, Jalen and Tua. If you had to make the decision, who would be the starter for the first game in 2018?
Oh, that's a tough question, man. Both of them are great quarterbacks. Both of them make plays with the feet and with the arm. They both win games clearly. But that's up to the coaches. That's up to those two players right there just to fight it out. And I have major respect for both of them on and off the field. And we miss playing with them for sure. And that's really a tough question to answer.
Well, let's make it easier. Describe both quarterbacks in terms of their attributes. Obviously, you have high regard for both, but break them down from your position on the other side.
Mm-hmm. I would say Jalen Hurts. He's a really good at managing the game. He's really good at he doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot. He doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. So you really got to try and do your best just to do your job on defense when you're playing against him, because he's gonna be at his best at all times of the game. He's gonna extend plays with his feet. He's gonna move around the pocket, make throws. He has really athletic receivers on the outside that you could get the ball to. So you got to just be on your A game the whole time when you're playing against him. And then Tua, he sees the field really well. He has a strong arm, and he has a whole lot of maturity. Both of them have a whole lot of maturity for the ages. Both younger guys that behave off the field and on the field like they're certified vets out there. So yeah, that's my scouting report on those two.
You ended your career on the sidelines only because Tua was out there throwing the winning pass, but I'm curious what you must have been thinking, because you know what he did on that play, and he was up against a good defender, but he faked them off. Were you able to pick that up in real time, what was going on?
Yeah. I had seen it. The safety was in the middle of the field. They were playing the former cover 2, and Tua just kind of looked over to the right to look him off a little bit. And then he just threw the ball up with looking like for only like half a second to the left, and safety wasn't able to get over the top half quick enough, and Tua just dropped the ball in there perfectly. Devontae fell right underneath it, and that was it.
How much pain were you playing in that final game? Because we were all concerned about you in Atlanta.
Yeah, I was hurting. I had bruised my kidney real bad in the week before, the game before. I couldn't practice a whole lot. I could barely even stand. During that week of practice, I had to just lay down during practice until Saturday was the only day I could really practice. I practiced like half the practice, and it was tough. It was tough. I had to fight through it, but after the game, I went right to sleep. Didn't do too much. I was real beat up, real tired, and but yeah, it was definitely worth it for sure.
I know you got to go, but had it not been for the national championship, would cooler heads have prevailed and maybe kept you out of that game? Because I talked to people the night before, and they were still not sure. They said you could not take a hit in that game very hard, or you were going to be in big trouble.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
How'd you get through it?
How'd I get through it? I was just thinking about winning that game. And it was a tough season. I had previously got hurt my hamstring, and I was just fighting through that before that, and I wasn't going to just give up on the last game of the season. the most important game of the season, the championship game. You know, my team needed me out there to make plays, make some calls, and do what we had to do. And I couldn't not be out there with my teammates. And I had thought about not playing, but I was like, after a little while, I was just like, nah, I can't not be out there with my boys.
Well, it was a courageous move, and it paid off for the Crimson Tide, and obviously you came out of it well. Thank you. I know you have a lot to do. We really appreciate you coming by today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. Let's get to the calls at 855-242-7285. Any reaction to that? More guests to come. Glad you are all here. We start with Justin in Cleveland. Hello, Justin. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Paul. Just a couple things to get off my chest, and then I've got a question for you, if that's all right, sir. Everyone's complaining about all the Alabama talk on the show. That's what happens when your head coach spends more time in the White House than FDR did. And, Paul, for all the people that are talking about how they don't like this show and how it was better and this, good, go listen to Skip Bayless and tell me how good this show is. And, Paul, before I go, I want to ask you a question. Are you a movie fan? Do you like motion pictures?
Yes, I work for Disney. What kind of answer would you expect?
Well, sir, I was watching a pretty good one last night. It was starring Johnny Depp. I'm not sure if you heard of it. It's called Secret Winder. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you check it out. Love you, baby. Bye-bye.
Yeah, no, I'm waiting for it to come out on Neilflix.
Kudos out the wonder.
Matt is up next.
Hey, Paul, you missed me, and all your Alabama fans have missed me, Paul Hatney.
What's up, Matt?
Oh, nothing much.
Matt, I got to tell you something. I was talking to a friend of mine today in Gainesville, Florida, and they think you're from Gainesville, Florida.
Heck no.
So I just
look at I got all the Georgia games. Look, if you don't follow me, but John Hayes does, and he's seen the pictures of me, and I've got baseball, basketball, football season tickets. See, I'm actually one of those fans that goes to the games. I just don't
was it? Did you enjoy coming on the first guest on the show, Minkah Fitzpatrick, playing for Alabama? Did that make you feel good?
Paul, I was actually having to do some work. You know, I have a job. I own a company, but I mean, hey, I Minkah. I like Minkah. You know, so it's But I wanted to. Did you say yesterday that South Carolina is the second team in the East?
No, I said they could be. Yeah.
They could be. Yeah, they could be. They could be. I mean, I think Missouri. Missouri showed a lot last year. I mean, and that. What
did Missouri show you last year?
Well, they got an offense. Was it Drew Lock? I mean, he's a heck of a quarterback. And I think Tennessee's got a bigger path to rebuild than Florida. I think Florida could be instantaneously good under Mullen. But
we agree.
And in the West, I mean, I definitely think Auburn's going to win it, like last year. And I don't think Alabama can beat Auburn. But,
and you base that on what, Matt? When you consider that the last two times Alabama, hold on a second. The last two times Alabama's beaten Auburn, the last two times Auburn's beaten Alabama.
The last two times Alabama's beaten Auburn?
Well, the last two times Auburn has beaten Alabama were both at Jordan-Hare Stadium, is what I was trying to say before you interrupted.
Was that the pick six, or was that last year?
Well, that was the kick six in 2013 in the game last year.
Hey, I got a joke for you, Paul. You're going to love it. Alabama joke of the day. All right. What does a tornado?
I hung up on him for this reason, ladies and gentlemen. I've lived through tornadoes. I've had a lot of friends die in tornadoes and have their life wiped out in tornadoes. So I'm not about to let some idiot from Georgia call up and make some Alabama joke, including the word tornado, just in case anybody was wondering why I hung up on him. Joe is up next. How are you, Joe?
Doing fine, Paul, and you did the right thing by hanging up on that jerk. You did absolutely the right thing. But how are y'all doing today?
We're doing great, Joe. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to chime in on something y'all were talking about, as yesterday, as y'all were talking about attendance at these games. And the answer to that one can pretty much be summed up in two words: Nick Saban. Because, and like if you're Tennessee, why would you want to spend your money to go watch a game that you know that you're probably going to lose? And the only time one's worth watching is if Alabama's in town, and then you're going to sell out and, just hope for a miracle. And that's pretty much, all they do is, as long as Nick Saban and Alabama's relevant year after year after year, you're going to see attendance fall because teams ain't going to be able to win the big one, and they're going to get sick and tired of it. And so we've pretty much got the whole nation crippled by the knees a little bit, Nick Saban has. And I did love what that last caller said about he's probably spent more time in the White House than one of the presidents. I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, yeah, the joke, Joe, was he spent more time there than FDR. FDR is the only president to ever be elected 4 terms. That was the secondary part of that joke. Let's check in with Will in Arizona. Will, welcome to our show. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Driving through, enjoying the beautiful weather out here in Arizona.
Thank you very much.
I called to talk to you about Nick. First of all, though, Minkah Fitzpatrick, what a football intelligence. I can't believe you thought you were going to get him to tell you which quarterback he preferred.
Well, I really didn't, but
he's smarter than that. The reason I actually called, I want to get to the question. I got a little statement after that, but I was sitting there thinking over all the things that Nick Saban does so great. Everybody he recruits, everything he does, the decisions he makes. There's one area that he's always failed in, and it's cost him more than any other area that he does, and that's his kicking game.
True.
Why is it that he absolutely refuses to go out and recruit a top-notch high school kicker, bring him into the program?
Well, first of all, he gave a scholarship to a kicker a couple of years ago, and it didn't pan out.
Okay, was that kicker, what was he, a 3-star, 4-star?
No, he was considered the best kicker in the country.
Okay. All right, well, this kicking by committee, using our punter to kick and all that, it seems not to be working out. I'm kind of hoping this year we come up with a little better plan.
But no, you are correct. It has been a major problem for years.
It's cost us a lot. The last thing I want to say before I go, since Matt likes to always tell jokes, he's a Georgia fan, correct?
Correct.
You know how you get a Georgia graduate off your porch?
I have no idea.
You pay him for the pizza, he'll leave. Have a good day, Paul.
Mac is up next. Mac is in Florida. Welcome to our show. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paul. I just wanted to say thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
You have a great show. Been listening to it for many years. Just want to touch on something about Jim and Matt and Daryl, the Three Stooges. It's great when they call and they act like they're going to quit calling because it makes people realize that, maybe they don't have to listen to their BS all the time. But one thing about it, when Jim calls in one time, that's bad enough. But the fact that he's got a direct line or something and he continuously calls in 1 time, 2 times, 3 times for Radio Gold, there's other people out there that, he's taking their time away. And I know you know that. You're smart enough to know that because you've been so successful. But and for him to compare himself to how great he would be if things hadn't happened, well, that's everybody every day anyway. You know what I mean? And for him to think that he can talk over people and be disrespectful like Matt, Daryl, and he does, that's just not what your majority of your callers is. 99% of them are polite, respectful, and you like to hear them. But the fact that Jim wants to disrespect women and don't have no problem, criticizing a lady that calls in or be disrespectful to the women, I just don't see where there's any place for that. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you having the show so we can listen to it, and I try to listen to it somewhere between 2.5 to 4 hours a day. So thank you again.
Mac, that means a lot. We appreciate your call and your loyalty to us. Thank you. Let's move along, and Matt is up next in Texas. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing good, Paul. How you doing, my friend?
We're doing great.
I just wanted to call and talk about A&M spring football game and who I think is going to go to the Final Four.
Okay. Why am I not surprised by this call?
Well, I just wanted to say before I talk about that, Paul, I love your show, Paul. Ever since it came out, I think 2014, when it first started, I became really a fan of your show, and I hope I'll be able to do what you do someday, Paul.
Well, Listen, Matt, we always enjoy talking to you, and I wish you well. And if there's anything any of us here, whether it's myself or John or Randy or anyone else that can help you with your pursuit, let us know.
Well, I will. I mean, I consider you like a hero, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, I heard some news out of College Station about the quarterback situation. Jimbo said he's not going to name a quarterback until August, and he wants to see the quarterbacks, who's going to step up as a leader, who's going to step up reading the offenses, and who's going to step up being able to, throw the ball better, become a better passer. And I kind of agree with Jimbo Fisher right there. I think that's his way of saying, get off my back and just let me see what these quarterbacks can do. And I kind of agree with him right there, Paul.
Well, I do too, Matt, because, first of all, he does not have a clear-cut situation. The spring game is coming up, and it also keeps everyone engaged. If you name your starter at the end of spring, you risk not having the competition that you need. If you don't name the starter, then everyone works even that much harder in the off season.
I agree with you. And as for the final 4 teams I think can go to the college football playoffs, you might be a little surprised. The first one I think is going to be Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, and the last one, Auburn.
Okay, wow.
And the first question I have to ask you is, do you disagree with me on those ones, or you agree?
Yeah, I think I heard Ohio State. I agree with. What was you mentioned Auburn, which I don't agree with. What were the other two?
Clemson.
I agree with that.
And Ohio State, Clemson, Auburn, Georgia.
Yeah. I thought you were going to go with Auburn twice.
No. I'm going to go Auburn twice.
I'll go with 2 of those, Matt. Hey, listen, we're up against the break. Thank you for the call. Thanks for the kind words. We're going to take a break. More guests to come. We started with Minkah Fitzpatrick. For those just getting home from work or into your car or on your app or wherever you are. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flail.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Hey, everyone, back on the show right now. Let's continue with more calls. 855-242-7285. That is our number. And Bruce is in Kentucky. What do you say, Bruce? Did not hear Bruce. Well, we'll try Jake in Memphis. Jake, welcome to the program.
How's it going, Mr. Finebaum?
It is excellent. How about you?
Good. I just have a question for you about South Carolina football. 2 questions, actually. One, how do you think Will Muschamp has done in his time in Columbia? And then 2, what do you think for the upcoming season for the Gamecocks?
Yeah, I think he's done great. I really do. I think had a pretty good transition in the first year. I thought last year was fabulous, even with losing Deebo Samuel early on, and beating Michigan at the end of the season was just fantastic. I thought the Clemson game was a little disappointing at home, but you're up against the best team in the country at the time. But I like what he's done with Jake Bentley at quarterback. I think that's always a good start. And next year, I think I would probably predict about a 9-3 season.
Awesome. Any chance you think we could beat Georgia in week 2?
Yeah. The fact that we're already talking about that game, I think, eliminates the possibility of Georgia being caught off guard or caught by surprise. But I still think that's a game that South Carolina could possibly win. I wouldn't. They won't be a favorite, but I would give them a puncher's chance. Hey, thank you very, very much for the call. I think we have Bruce back in Kentucky. Bruce, you're on the air, and go right ahead.
Yes, sir. Mr. Finebaum, do you think that the way the SEC is set up right now with our good football teams that maybe we have a chance to do another 5 or 6 national championships in a row?
Well, I think it's always difficult to have what we had in that streak that began, I think it was in 6 and ended in, went through the 12th season, 7 in a row. There's really great football being played elsewhere, but I think the SEC will continue to win a majority of the national championships.
Absolutely. I think so, too.
What's so remarkable about that streak, you had Florida twice, you had LSU, you had Alabama, obviously, and then you had Auburn playing for 2 national championships and winning one. So it wasn't just one team. It was a number of them. And that's really what needs to happen, though, because Georgia getting in the championship game last year was a positive. Auburn was one win away from getting in there as well. So, I think right now you have 2 legitimate contenders in Alabama and Georgia. Auburn is next. Will Florida come back? Will someone else emerge as a legitimate candidate?
Well, it's only a matter of time for Florida, I would think.
I would think so, yeah.
With their recruiting. And so, yes, I appreciate you answering my call.
Thank you very much. Really nice of you to call. How about Brandon next up? Brandon, welcome to the program. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Paul. How are you doing today?
We are doing well. Thanks a lot.
I was going to see if you would enlighten me a little bit or actually even let me vent some on this Jalen Hurts Tua situation.
Yeah, what do you think? What's your thought?
Well, here's the thing. I can't ever overlook leadership or experience. I can, however, understand the fact that you've had a complete falling out in a championship game. You were down by 13, and let's just face it, football wasn't football to you, and the game wasn't going anywhere. But on the other side of the spectrum, you've got a guy who is possibly one of the best 2-year guys in America. I mean, he's 26-2. I think he's accumulated 61 touchdowns or so. I can't even imagine how many teams that are, say, in a fighting chance to be in a national championship race in Division I that would want him. And I'm just curious on your perspective. I have a good feeling, as humble as Jalen is, he's not going to go anywhere this year. And Alabama really needs him to stay because they need 2 quarterbacks because they didn't really pursue any. But based off this, could you see anywhere where they would try to come up with a system to utilize both of their talents, or do you think at the end of the year one of them's gone?
No, first of all, I agree with you completely. I think Jalen will stay. Let's go back to the championship game. Okay. Saban made the only decision he could make. I don't think it was a difficult decision at all. At halftime, that locker room wanted a change. You could sense it. You could feel it based on everything we've heard since then. So he made the right call. And now the right call is to let it play out. Jalen, to me, is a team leader, but he's not. But he's certainly deficient where Tua is strong. So you have to try to work both of them. The one you don't want to lose right now is Tua. He is your future. So Nick Saban has to figure out a way to nurse this along, and I'm willing to bet he will. The Tua injury on the first day of practice may have actually helped, because it took some of the heat off of the quarterback race. Yeah, we still ask every player about it. We ask Minkah. We'll ask everyone. But it will not be determined by the end of spring. And what you want is a healthy competition. And then if Jalen Hurts does not win the job, then you have to find a way to include him in the offense, which I don't think would be that difficult.
I don't either. I think he's got too much talent. Last question, and then I'm going to let you go. Thanks for talking to me. If you had to go fast forward to September and you were going with your gut opinion, kickoff, Louisville, who did you start, Tua or Jalen?
I think Jalen Hurts will be the starter.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. And but I think Tua will be in there very quickly. And I think that's what Saban has to do. He can't say you're not going to play at all. He's got to have a game plan that gets Tua in there very quickly. Otherwise, he runs the risk of losing him. We are going to take a break. A lot of people disagree with me about that. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Back with much, much more.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to our program. Glad you're here. And Justin is in Nebraska. How are you, Justin?
Not bad, Paul. How's it going?
Excellent. What's going on with you?
Well, Florida spring games this weekend, and just kind of want your thoughts on that. I was reading Jordan Rogers' article about Felipe Franks possibly being the best quarterback situation for Florida this year. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's so easy just to want to throw out the old and look at the new ones down there, which there are quite a few, as you know. I really would rather see the game. I just don't know. I know there's a lot of optimism, and I'll tell you something you already know, but I think Dan Mullen is in a perfect spot to find the right quarterback, whether it's Franks or Trask or somebody else. I really feel good about this situation with Dan down there.
And my other second question is, how many wins do you think Florida can get this year? Because I feel that Georgia obviously is the top team in the East this year, but if you give Dan Mullen with the recruits he has, he's also just picked up a 3-star recruit that Ohio State was recruiting. Yeah. My question is, how long do you think it takes for Florida to get back to that prominent SEC East?
Not long, because this is not a complete reclamation project like Tennessee and Arkansas. This is a program that's slipped a little bit. Biggest issue has been quarterback. And last year, it's really hard to get a good gauge of what happened last year because they lost 9 players and 10, I think, and they were never the same. And then you had the flame out from Jim McElwain. So I don't think it's going to take Florida very long at all.
Well, thanks, Paul. I really hope they do come back because I'm a huge Gator fan and love sporting the SEC and love your show. Have a great day.
Thank you. Really good to hear from you. Charles is up next. Charles, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, Paul, thanks for taking my call, brother. First-time caller.
Thank you.
Look, I got to tell you something, Paul. But my wife is not a sports fan, but she comes in from school now. We're retired here in Georgia, but she started watching your show. She will not miss it. She will call me and tell me to record it.
Oh, my goodness. How cool.
So she doesn't miss it.
Okay, tell me this. When you're because I have a lot of friends of mine who tell me they'll DVR the show. When you're going through the show, whether it's at night or the next day or whenever, is there a particular caller that you go to 4, or if you can go to 10 on your fast forward, you go through as fast as possible?
Well, from today forward, I will skip through Joe from Red Bay, Alabama. Boy, he hit a nerve with me today, brother. Look, I got news for that man. Everybody in the SEC are not fair weather fans. I've been a season ticket holder at Arkansas since 1977. I don't care who they're playing. I go to the games. I've been to over 250 games. I've probably seen Alabama play in person more times than he has. So, as a matter of fact, at one time I was a huge Alabama fan. I seen the Bear coach's last game at the Liberty Bowl over there. So, but I was back in the day when Johnny Musso was playing at Alabama back in the old days. I used to love Alabama, but oh my God, since we joined the SEC, I've kind of changed my mind a little bit. Yeah. Well, look, Paul, I'm a realistic Razorback fan. I hear people saying 6 wins. I don't think we'll get there this year. But I got a quick question for you. I know you've seen a little bit of the spring game. What did you think about Ty Story up there?
I thought he looked good. I kind of did what you may do with Joe from Red Bay. I went through the game pretty quickly. I've kind of caught bits and pieces of it, but I felt better. What about you?
About him, I truly did, because he's more mobile, and I think he's got a better arm, if you want to know the truth, That's my thoughts, but I say 4 to 6 wins, 4 to 5 wins this year. I think we lose at Colorado State, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, I can't remember. We had somebody on the other day that was talking 6, but I think, frankly, Arkansas may be a more difficult job right now than even Tennessee.
Well, Paul, I tweeted the other day, I'm getting too old, to wait till next year. I'm over 60 now.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Charles. At some point, you got to see it.
Yeah, Paul. Look, brother, I appreciate the call, and keep it up. We absolutely love the show. Woo, pig suey, brother.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate that. Johnny is in Orlando. You're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hi, Paul. This is Johnny again. I called you yesterday.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
How you doing?
We are doing fantastic. Thank you for the call.
Well, you looking good, standing tall, looking good. That's where you got to be. Paul, yesterday I called, and I was very nice. I'm a nice guy. I don't speak dirty and cuss people and fuss and stuff like that. But yesterday when I called, you two gentlemen that are on the program, which I don't know at all, so I'm not making a judgment on them at all. But they said something back on the show that they said that I had, and they were on the screen at the time, that I really didn't have anything to call about and talk about. Well, Paul, that was just wrong. I mean, that was wrong for them to say that, because I did have a reason to call, and you know I did because I talked to you about it. My reason, basically, is I said about all the coverage of Alabama, and then I complimented Alabama a lot because, Paul, I was brought up an Alabama fan in my young years because my dad's from Troy. That's where he was from. And so I was brought up an Alabama fan. And but as I got older in my teenage
Johnny,
years...
I hate to run, but we have to get to a break. We'll be right back.
The brand new ESPN app. Now with ESPN Plus. Get more ESPN and download now.
It was BYOG, bring your own guts.
This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. So glad you are here. Second hour. We had a great first hour. Minkah Fitzpatrick joins us live, and we had a great talk with him. Told us he almost did not play in the national championship game. He didn't practice till the Saturday before. He said he was so banged up with a bruised kidney that he could hardly stand up. Thought about not playing, but he did. Let's get to calls and also a look ahead to what we have remaining here in the show. Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times wrote a really fascinating story recently about Jim McElwain, why he ended up taking a bath on his house down in Florida. He also talked about another former SEC coach who's coming down to Tampa in the coming days, a place where he may not have great memories. And Bill Bender, always on a bender when he joins us. Let's get back to the calls at 855-242-7285. And Bobby, up next in Birmingham.
How you doing, Dave, buddy?
Hey, Bobby.
What? You wasn't home but a New York second yesterday. I got up, got me a Pepsi and come back. You was gone. I called DirecTV. Told them next time you do something like that, you better put Paul on the alternate channel.
Yeah, there is an alternate channel, but I have no control over what anyone here does other than myself.
I said, I called them and told them. I said, much money did I pay y'all next time you do something like that, put Paul on the alternate channel.
Well, I hope it was a good game, whoever was playing.
I don't know. I didn't watch it. I got mad. I turned it off. But I got a chance to hear you interview Coach Chiswick yesterday. He was down at Mississippi State.
Yeah, Stark Vegas. Singing the Bulldogs song.
Yeah, Hell State. I believe you fell in love with that new coach.
Oh, he's great. Joe Moorhead.
Yeah. Well, you're going to get enough of falling in love with them Big Ten coaches coming south trying to invade the SEC. I know one you fell in love with, boy. He had you calling hogs and everything.
Oh, yeah. I fell hard for him.
Yeah, you fell in love with his wife and her two little puppies, boy. I saw you on TV with a razor back hat on and pig sewing, boy. You sure miss them coaches, don't you, boy?
Yeah, I fell in love with Brett, Butch,
Butch.
Who else?
Yeah.
I fell hard, too. McElwain, I thought McElwain was going to be the next Knute Rockne.
and all of them end up being losers, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Freeze. Oh, I really love that Hugh Freeze.
Oh, my God.
You know the problem with Hugh Freeze, though?
What, Paul?
I was monogamous in my love for him.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what Hugh Freeze's problem was, man. I love women too, but damn, you can go too far. You know what I mean? You go too far. Well, look at here, but I ain't gonna hold you. I'm gonna say
don't
this
hold me
bit.
up. Don't dare hold me up.
Hey, and then I'm gonna let you go. Everybody try to find out who's gonna be all them quarterbacks in Alabama. We call them game managers. I'm gonna tell you who's gonna be the game manager this year. If you don't hold that football, I don't care if your name's Paul Finebaum, you won't start.
I guess that means could be Jalen Hurts. Let's go back to the calls and talk to Ken in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Hello, Ken.
How are you today, Paul?
Quite well. Glad to hear from you.
I called in to comment on the Tua Hurts situation, but while I was sitting here, Johnny called in from Orlando, and I noticed he called in yesterday also. I don't know who produces your show. I don't know what your ratings are. But as an old retired lawyer, I would love to have a show that comes on 4 hours a day, and one or two people are on the TV the whole 4 hours. And what the great part is, people call in and tell you how much they love your show, but then they proceed to tell you what they don't like about your show. Now, where could you find that in television anywhere?
No, this is unique. This is a one-of-a-kind product here.
Well, but I'm saying, and I'm the same way. I religiously, at 2 o'clock, which I'm on Central Time, I wait for you to come on, and I sit here and I listen to some of your callers are not the best in the world, but I love them. I love Billy. I love Ed from Massachusetts. They don't always have a lot to do with sports, but again, for me, just to sit here and go through all the people. Hey, I even love Jim from Tuscaloosa because he creates. You know that. Matter of fact, this is your life, isn't it? Having Jim from Tuscaloosa.
I was talking to somebody about this today, Ken, and this show is different than any other show in America. And by the way, we're doing very well ratings-wise. And it's like being a symphony conductor without music. So you're just trying to create 4 hours of sound and fury, and sometimes it works brilliantly. Sometimes it sounds like Tchaikovsky, and sometimes it sounds like...
But it's there every day. The ratings are good every day. Your sponsors, I'm sure, love you. Again, and I just want to tell you again, and I'm like literally hundreds of thousands or millions of people that watch you.
Thank you.
We love you, and don't change a thing, and don't kick anybody off.
Okay. Well, that means a lot. Really appreciate that, Ken, because thank you very much. I mean, every day we try to. I mean, we have we don't have really a lot of people. We have about 3 people who work very hard on this show, and we care. We do care what people say. We don't know everything, and we also know that there are a lot of people in many, many states. People watch this show and listen to it in every state in the union. We do have that one person in Montana. But it's never going to be the same twice, and that's really why I think it's unique. It's not Formula A, where you put on ESPN or CBS or MSNBC or whatever network you choose in the morning. It's usually the same stuff. Right, I-Man?
Great afternoon, Paul, and you're exactly right. And let me touch on this thing. You mentioned McElwain a while ago. McElwain seemed to be doing pretty good till them pictures of him naked started showing up.
When he jumped the shark, it was all over.
Yeah, and it's like he just kind of lost his sense of humor. I mean, or whatever. I don't know.
And he took that seriously too. I sat with him in Birmingham, and he was still exercised over it. Just laugh it off, man. I mean, who do you know, man, who takes stuff seriously from the day before?
Nobody. Well, not on this show. I mean, yesterday's old stuff. This is a whole brand new day today. And but yeah, he didn't like that. He didn't like being posed out there naked. Paul, the one thing your last caller kind of missed on. Nobody quits this show better than Jim. Now, most people, when they quit something, they leave and they don't never come back because they mean it. But Jim, there's some cats in the movie when they die, they just stare off into dead space, and some of them choke and cough, and they hold their chest, and then, Paul, I got to go right here. And so there's a lot of different things. And even John Wayne had a fairly decent little dying scene, but nobody quits and dies off better than Jim. Now, when do you think they're going to take? Do you think Jim is a collection of all those people on TV and in the movies? As they quit and died off in the movie, and then only to come back next week in another movie. But do you think that Jim has kind of stole a little personality here and a little? When Jim's talking to you, do you see him holding his chest, stumbling across the room like Fred Sanford? Elizabeth, I'm coming, Elizabeth. Because he quit so masterfully to be such a childlike person. Paul, as always, with the Auburn Tigers, more damn evil, we're only getting faster.
Thank you very much, man. Appreciate that. Let's continue. Dave in New York, you're on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paul, and hope you're doing good today.
Thank you very much. Great to hear from you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks. I know a while back there was that whole story that broke regarding the FBI and the NCAA and all those schools in Adidas. And I've been trying to wrap my head around it for 2 months. And I know all these ideas have been floating around what to do in both football and basketball, how to stop it. And I'm no genius. I'm only a regular guy. But I have some things that have already been examined, like starting a minor league for basketball players that don't go to college or can't, they don't want to go. But I'm saying, if you want to go, not just for football too, my suggestion is, besides if you want to go ahead. But if you leave early, depending on how many years you leave early, that's how many scholarships you cannot offer in any sport the next year. And then also, at the same time, unlike this is what I call the cam rule, you can only transfer once. Even if a coach gets fired, you can't transfer again. And one other thing I think that would be a good idea is that with all these other schools that have been mentioned, other things, automatic 1 year no sport. And then if it happens again, to add 2 years onto it. And then finally, if these schools get smart, they'll finally say, okay, our donors are going a little overboard, and I think this might be able to be a loan deterrent in-house.
Listen, I need to chew on that one, David. I think it's highly unlikely and almost impossible that it will ever happen, but I do appreciate you calling and sharing your thoughts with us. We are up against a break. More of your calls, more guests. Phone number here is 855-242-7285, and we are coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back, and we are so glad that you're here. We're going to continue with your calls at 855-242-7285. And let's continue right now. Clyde is in Georgia, and you are on the air. Hello, Clyde.
Hello, Paul.
How are you?
This is my first time calling. I've listened a lot, and
wonderful.
I'm a blind person. I live alone. I'm a retired police officer. I lost my vision in law enforcement, and
oh my goodness.
And I'm an avid college football fan from many, many, many years ago, and I wanted to touch on something about the old school football with you. I might even go back further than you, because I think that you'd probably be my junior if the truth was known.
I'm glad to hear somebody's junior.
Yeah, right. I used to enjoy football every Saturday afternoon when we watched. We didn't watch it. We listened to it on the radio. There was no television. And several of us gather around and listen to whoever was on the air at the time. Might be Georgia Tech playing Tennessee or some other teams. But I listened to the Notre Dame Army football a lot back then. Those were the heydays for those schools, as you may well know.
Oh, sure.
And back in the 40s, they had two fellas there for Army, Doc Blanchard and Glenn Davis.
Oh, sure.
I believe they referred to him as Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside.
That is correct.
And I followed their football a lot, and I also followed Notre Dame when they had boys like Johnny Lujack in there and all. You remember him?
Yeah, I mean, I know who he is. I'm a student of the game.
Yeah. But anyhow, I just want to touch, for the sake of whoever's listening, older football fans, that back when you could visualize a field. You'd never been there, but you could visualize a field whenever you got into this game. The commentators were so great. I mean,
Clyde, I remember they always would say, Notre Dame has the ball moving right east to west or right to left. Yeah, I mean, you're right. The great broadcasters in radio did paint a vivid picture.
And I don't know that I would have come as far as I did with college football if I hadn't have been inspired by just sitting and seeing what your mind could do for you, not your eyes, but your ears and your mind.
I'm curious, Clyde, and I know you called me, but how long ago did you lose your eyesight?
Right about 40 years ago. I had 25 years in law enforcement, and I had to give it up, and I was in a pretty serious automobile accident. But well,
the reason I ask is I've told this story before, but a very close friend of mine, he passed away about 15 years ago, was a blind man. He lost his sight during the war, and I sat with him many a day watching a football game, and he was and I was doing the description, and we had the best time together. He ended up being one of the world's greatest blind golfers.
Really?
But it just showed, and you could give a seminar on dealing with disability, but it shows what people can do, and what you have encountered, and listening to you is just a great inspiration to me.
I've had a guide dog for a while, and I've gone around to a lot of the schools, elementary schools and high schools I've been invited to by the principals and so forth, and talked to the students about what it is, number one, to be in law enforcement and then lose your vision and have to give it up, and then what it was to be a blind person out in the world, and it's totally a readjustment, let me tell you.
I can imagine. It's just that is just such a great story. Do you still have your guide dog?
No, I don't have him. I've been through 3 of them.
Okay. In
my lifetime, and every one of them breaks your heart when you lose it.
Oh my goodness! I mean, I've always just been, and I'm a lover of dogs, but just the intelligence level that these dogs must have to have in the training to do it correctly.
Yeah, I went to a guide dog school in Florida, one of the biggest in the nation, and I got 2 dogs from there. One died, and I got another one. After that, I was qualified to train dogs, and my 3rd guide dog I got from a pound. He was a throwaway dog, and I got him and took him to the vet and got him fixed up like he should be and cleaned up, and all the fleas gone.
Oh, that's amazing.
That dog trained just as good as anybody from the school.
That is fascinating.
And I had that dog for 11 years.
Wow. I mean, that is such a great story.
Anyhow, I didn't call to talk about that necessarily.
Listen, I'm the one that asked you, so blame me.
I want to talk a little bit about the old college football, and that's what brought me to today. I have a big screen TV, which I watch you on, and I watch college football every Saturday when it comes on, and they have a good selection of games across the nation, so you don't have to watch the same team. Used to on the radio, you'd get whoever they brought, and that was about it, and that was on Saturday afternoon. They didn't have many night games they ever broadcast that I know of.
Well, Clyde, I wish you well. I hope you'll call back. It was a pleasure getting to know you.
Well, it's nice talking to you, and I don't have any problem if any of your listeners want to talk to me and your people care to give them the number. It'll be fine with me, sir.
I will do that, and you be well, and call again very soon, I hope.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Clyde. That's amazing.
Bye-bye.
I mean, I don't mean to start interviewing our callers, but just think of the idea of what losing your eyesight, and then the idea that a dog, your entire life, is dependent on that dog knowing what he's doing. I mean, I have a hard enough time getting my dog off the couch, let alone have him walk me through the streets of Manhattan. Let's go to Bill in Starkville. How are you, Bill?
Oh, so I get to follow that. Thanks, Paul.
I knew you could handle it, Bill.
Well, of course I can. I mean, and for all the things that I would ordinarily be expected to talk about, what has occurred to me is, in this downtime of the season, with all the new coaches, just because I think Bobby had brought it up, it was really funny because I was already thinking about it. Y'all need SEC, ESPN, whatever, needs to do a new series on the coaches' wives in the SEC. Like we did at the very beginning.
We did it at the beginning when the network launched.
That's when you fell in love with Bielema's wife and
Yeah.
everybody else's wives and whatever, I mean, and so now there's lots of new sheriffs in town.
Yeah, I've gotten to know a lot of the wives, and I've also, as you know, Bill, because you've been, I've gotten to be yelled at by a lot of the wives. So,
well, of course, that's all together, but they just soon be appreciated and focused too. I mean, I was just going like, we need to do that again, especially with all the new coaches. And by the way, in the last segment, we had Mason and Summerlin, and neither one of them their wives, if they are married, appeared in that series.
Oh, I didn't realize
I found
that.
a little disconcerting or whatever. It doesn't matter. But anyway, outside of that, it's all good. It's springtime. Now I'm in trouble, so now you're in trouble when you bring yourself back over here. But my main thing was just, again, to say, now that we've turned the page, we've got a lot of new faces. The women, like always, bring everything into focus. Even Megan with Mullen in Gainesville is not going to be the same that she was here in Starkville in terms of being the coach's wife. So that's the good news. That was my point. Hope everything else is well with you.
It's great, Bill. Thanks for asking.
As always.
It's springtime. How can you beat it?
Oh, I mean, I've come home and everything is budding out, and I'm like should be here. And I'm sorry, I'm really sad for Vic Schaefer and his girls that they didn't finish the act. But what a great bunch of people!
Yeah, it was amazing. Had a chance to talk to Vic the day after, and hope he's doing well. He's been a great friend of ours. Thanks, Bill, for the call. We are up against a break. Matt Baker will join us next from Tampa. A couple of stories that he will share with us, and then we will get right back to your calls.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Ryan, I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say it.
What is it, Linda?
I think we should see other people.
Are you breaking up with me on a roller coaster?
Well, we do have a lot of fun. Maybe we should stay together.
An emotional roller coaster? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I just need a little me time.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
And welcome back to our program. Delighted to be joined by Matt Baker down in Tampa, covers the Gators, among other things. And, Matt, it's been a while. We are glad that you have joined us. Thanks for the time. As we welcome you in, we just heard from Dan Mullen during the commercial break. I get the question every day. You probably get it 100 times a day about the quarterback situation. Hello, and what's going on down there?
Hey, thanks for having me on, Paul. Yeah, the quarterback situation's kind of where it was last year. It looks like Felipe Franks still kind of has the edge. He struggled in the one open scrimmage that we saw a couple weeks ago. Threw a couple picks, but not all of them were his fault. It was rainy, and there's a bunch of ifs and buts there. But the fact is, he's still the most talented quarterback on the roster. Maybe Emory Jones, the early enrollee, can get there eventually, but right now he looks like a true freshman playing in his first spring. And Kyle Trask, another redshirt sophomore, he's got some talent as well, but he was a high school backup. down in Texas, and he's shown flashes, but I don't know that he's consistent enough to be the guy. So right now, I still think Felipe Franks is the guy to beat, but we'll get a better taste of where things are in the spring game on Saturday.
Let me ask you about Jones, because naturally he's the buzz because of the circumstances involving his recruiting. What can you tell us about us? And I assume the upside's pretty high.
Oh, yeah, the upside definitely very high. I thought he looked very smooth. His passes have come out a little bit wobbly. I've seen not necessarily the most accurate yet. And obviously he's still learning the system. Again, he's been through 13 practices, 14 practices, whatever it is. You expect all that stuff. But like I said, he's smooth, and I mean that as a passer as well as a runner. You can tell there's some athletic ability there. And it's, kind of what you would expect from a Dan Mullen quarterback, to be able to tuck it and run when need to be, move out in the pocket, do RPOs, that type of stuff. So I definitely think he has the talent and potential to be the starting quarterback for this team down the line. Initially, I thought that could be in September, but right now I think it's probably a year or so away.
I have a couple of questions. I think I'm going to hit you with about three former coaches in the SEC. Let me start with Steve Spurrier. I realize he's the ambassador, but it was announced the other day that he's now going to be a coach, and I'll try to remember the name of this league, the Alliance of something. But how has that story played? I'm happy for Spurrier, but has it had much of a ripple effect down there?
Not really. I think you summed it up. Yeah, everybody's happy for Spurrier. Great, he gets to coach again, which is something he loves to do, and obviously he's been great at it. It's something where it's not as much pressure. It's not a 60-hour-a-week, 70-hour-a-week, 80-hour-a-week job like being a head coach in the SEC, but it's going to get him back in the game. But, I mean, no, I can't say I've had a bunch of emails and tweets or anything like that asking me about Steve Spurrier and this team in Orlando from the Association Alliance of something or other.
Yeah. You know the name of the league about as well as I do. This story did get a lot of attention that you did and you broke, and people tend and want to take shots at Jim McElwain. Certainly he brought a lot of this on, but you told a fascinating story the other day in your newspaper that a lot of us felt badly about for having maybe misread or misjudged the initial story. Let me have you explain it. We're talking about Jim McElwain selling his house for a lower rate than we originally thought, but we didn't realize what was really going on.
Well, you mentioned a lot of people feeling bad about it. I'm including myself in that because I thought it was, there were easy jokes to make, but I felt like an idiot afterward. So he sold his Gainesville home. He bought it for $1.8 million and sold it for $1.4. So the jokes were really easy. Ha ha ha! Jim McElwain took another loss on his way out of town. Ha ha ha! But then I found out the story why, and that's because there is a family in Gainesville that has two children with disabilities. One of them is in a wheelchair, needs a wheelchair to get around just about all the time. Doesn't really have movement on one side of his body. But the home that McElwain had in Gainesville was absolutely perfect for that family. Just the ramps and the wide doorways and the open hallways and everything else was set up perfectly for someone with disability. And the other part that I thought was interesting, McElwain had this converted garage that he would use to house, when opposing coaches would visit for the spring, whatever. He'd put him up in the converted garage, which was an apartment. Well, this one young man, Tyler, he's 20 years old. He has these disabilities. So this is a perfect first apartment for him. It's going to give him a chance to have a little bit of independence, which he deserves at that age, but still be very close to mom and dad in case anything goes wrong. So, yeah, the jokes were really easy, but it turns out that there was a really important, interesting reason behind it, and I'm glad it got all the attention that it did because it shines light on the foundation for this family at Tyler's Hope, and also it gives us a little bit of a lesson. Maybe we shouldn't just be throwing stones in glass houses all the time, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic story, and people should read it if they haven't. Matt, finally, another coach who I don't know if we'll come back in a couple of days and say, man, why are we taking so many shots at him? But you wrote about another former SEC coach. It seems like there are a lot of them out there right now. Hugh Freeze, he's coming to Tampa to speak to a Christian organization, and there is a tie to that area, is there not?
There is a tie to that area because I don't know if it was the last tie last time that Hugh Freeze was in Tampa, or one of them, he was on a recruiting trip and made a call to a number associated with a female escort service. That's obviously became a public record in one of the lawsuits, and that is what led to him now being the former Ole Miss head coach. So it's interesting that he's coming back here to give a speech at this Christian event down here in Tampa in a week or so, but not making any jokes there. We'll just kind of leave it at that. How's that, Paul?
Yeah, no, I mean, when it comes to you, Matt, I'm afraid to crack any jokes because you'll come back and say that Coach Freeze is down there, building homes for Habitat for Humanity. Anyways, one thing that we will end on is you did another story. You've been busy, man. You must be getting paid by the article about a stream of former Gators who are now being included in this program, and I sense that that's a pretty good start for Dan Mullen, but we have a headline up on the screen. We knew about Spurrier, but he's there a good bit. But others are coming by as well, and give us the backstory.
Yeah, Danny Werfel, Ahmad Black, Lewis Murphy, former Buck. Percy Harvin's around so much that players are starting to call him Coach Percy. I think Mullen's doing it for a couple of reasons. One, because he can, because he obviously spent a lot of time, spent a few years in Gainesville. Two, I think it's a way to kind of fire up the fan base because they would rather talk about 2006 and 2008 than the debacle they just experienced last year. And I think the other thing is it's something to get the program and the players around it fired up. These are guys who played at a championship level and did very good things in Gators, or for the Gators. If he's able to get them kind of thinking, well, this is what they did, maybe it's what we should be doing too.
Interesting article, man. You could spend the rest of the day just reading Matt's articles down in Tampa. Matt, I hope you'll come back soon. We'll basically let you go back to work. I'm sure your editors wanting to know why you haven't published something in the last 5 minutes.
Well, I hope they're listening to this. Put it that way, Paul. Thank you.
We do too. Matt, thanks. Matt Baker, great reporter down in Tampa covering the Gators. We'll get your reaction to all of this today. We started with Minkah Fitzpatrick. More guests later on. Your phone calls at 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to our program. Glad you're here, and you can continue to call us at 855-242-7285. Richard is in Baton Rouge. Richard, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul. It's my second call to your show. First time I called to affirm you in remarks about Anthony Hardaway.
Oh, yeah.
And then I commenced to talk about LSU sports, but it was just a matter of coincidence, but I got cut off and didn't get a chance to come back until today. And what I wanted to talk to you about is y'all mentioned ratings. By the way, I'm an LSU fan and alumnus, so hope that doesn't disqualify me from talking.
No.
But on the ratings, are ratings for this show posted, anywhere?
Yeah, it's an interesting question about ratings. We have three different distributions publicly on various radio stations, on satellite radio, and then obviously on the SEC network. Interestingly, I did mention that the ratings for this network are not public, and I don't think I'm qualified to explain the machinations of why that is or isn't. Does that mean that there aren't some suspicions of how we are doing? Of course there are. We're part of a television network. So when I said that, I probably maybe overstated what's available to the public. But we have a good sense internally of how we're doing. Let me put it that way.
Okay, so you wouldn't know if it's done state by state?
No. Ratings are done nationally for television. Radio ratings are different. Every market is rated, and it's very, very complicated, and it will vary depending on where you go. But in television, I really don't know exactly how they do it. Every market has X number of people that are hooked in, but it all it is not a state by state distribution, though. No.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, hypothetically, if a rating state by state would be available to you, and let's say by some happenstance you would be low rated in a state compared to other states, would that concern you?
No. But I mean, it would be interesting to know that. But hey, by the way, let me correct myself. I am wrong, and I don't know. I can't believe I said that. Ratings, you can look at a city by city. Let me put it that way, because it's a fact that when you look at college football ratings, you may be able to guess this. The number one rated city, I think, for the last 15 years is Birmingham, Alabama. And it is the highest rated college football city, I think, followed by it may be Greenville, South Carolina, which is close to Clemson, Knoxville. I'm pretty sure New Orleans, Baton Rouge would be in there pretty prominently. So yeah, let me undo what I just got through saying. I can't believe I forgot that. But it's not state by state. It would be market by market. I mean, we would. I think the way things are here. I mean, you would be interested in any data you can get, but I doubt seriously a network like this would. If we say, okay, we have tremendous penetration in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, we don't have it in Louisiana. Are we going to start having Ed Ogeron on every day? Probably wouldn't be the case.
Well, I could understand that. Okay, are you based in Birmingham, Alabama?
No, our studios are in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North. So you are right as we speak in Charlotte, North Carolina.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, I want you to know I listen regularly because I do want LSU news to a fair degree.
Sure.
That's.
But you know something, Richard? I've been in local radio and newspapers for a long time. I mean, I try to shoot straight here. There is no way we can serve your market the same way as your local market can. It's impossible.
I believe you're fair. I guess the deeper question I would have is the SEC network? The SEC network is a well-recognized force, and I'm very happy for that. I think there are many benefits, and hallelujah. But as far as the SEC is concerned, do they have any interaction, input, communication, influence on your show whatsoever?
It is a partnership, yes. The SEC and the company that I work for, which is obviously ESPN, are in a joint partnership on this network. So the answer would be yes. Okay. Well,
I didn't intend to put you through a.
No, that's okay. By the way, I feel like Mark Zuckerberg. I'm sitting on a cushion and I'm sweating.
Okay. Well, please don't sweat and don't joke like that. Back to LSU. What is your take on the LSU basketball recruiting?
Let me try to answer that when we come back, Richard. We have to go here, but thank you very much for the call.
The brand new ESPN app. Now with ESPN Plus. Get more ESPN and download now.
It was Big YOG, bring your own guts.
This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. Glad you're here, and we have a lot to do. The final 2 hours, a couple more guests. Minkah Fitzpatrick joined us early. We may go back and dip back into what he had to say for those of you who are just now getting on board. Let's get some more calls here at 855-242-7285. And Joe is up next. What do you say, Joe?
Hey, how are you, Paul?
Oh, doing great. Thank you.
Big fan of yours. Never called before. Listened to you quite some.
Where do you live?
And I'm calling you from Canada, Windsor, Ontario. 7 minutes away from Detroit.
Sure. No, I know. I've slipped across the border.
Yeah, we're known for casino and adult entertainment bars. That's what we're known for.
Know it well.
So, big fan. Listen to you all the time. I really love you on game day. I think you're a great addition to the show there. That is my favorite show of all time.
Thank you very much.
And I will compliment you because I feel I need to, because I believe because of the demographic and where you're from, I believe you're still very impartial with your opinions, and I think that's why I appreciate you so much. A lot of people, it's hard for them to you're from a school, you're from a region, some of that always leaks out in their opinions and their when they're doing their analysis. And so I like to compliment on that. I think that's why I appreciate
you very much.
So much.
I really do appreciate that.
Because I am from Big Ten country, and I don't know how many people call from that area praising you, but I feel that they should. So anyway, the question I had was, Alabama has 2 FCS opponents, if I read the schedule right, coming up in the 2018 season. And Alabama is Alabama, and I just wonder if, when they went down to the playoff last year, it is, in a lot of people's opinion, that if Ohio State would have beaten Wisconsin by a couple touchdowns, maybe even 17 points, they might have squeaked in when, let's face it, we all know that Alabama was clearly the better team than Ohio State. So I wonder, as they play weaker opponents, like those they call them cupcake weeks, which, it's a little insulting to the FCS, but it is what it is. I was wondering if that's going to hurt them in time, because they are who they are, and they're kind of living on the reputation. And I just wonder, in a tiebreaker, if that would be a concern, having 2 FCS opponents.
Yeah, I think it's embarrassing when you play those type of opponents, Joe. And you're right about last year. Alabama didn't get credit for beating FSU because they were the number 3 team in the country on the day they beat them. They ended up being a lousy team. So but I think the committee looked past that. A lot of the media folks did not. But I frankly think Alabama's schedule this year is pretty laughable. It's you schedule a couple of years in advance. You think Louisville is going to be a major opponent, and turns out Louisville is a punching bag. So you lose that, and then the rest of it, and the schedule is not going to get that much better in coming years. But you look at it, Louisville, Arkansas State, and then the Citadel and Louisiana. I count me out. I don't think any of those 4 games are worth watching.
Right. It's at the same time as a tiebreaker in the end, and as humans are voting on it, that being the committee. Yeah. I think that would have hurt them this year if they had 2 FCS going against that OSU, and the argument on the other side of that is going to be the SEC schedule. But when you look at that, they'll play a quality opponent in the SEC championship game, but how many of those teams that they see on that schedule are going to be highly regarded? Auburn might be. I'm doing a lot of stumbling here because I'm not sure I can find another team that's going to be a top 10 team. Mississippi State will be a top 25 team. LSU, you think will, you're not sure. But beyond that, that schedule, you're right. If Auburn loses to Washington and then to Georgia and maybe somewhere they're not supposed to, and no one else really rises up, that is a problematic schedule. I agree with you. Yeah, I happen to notice that as I was getting excited for college football, maybe a little too early, but you just kind of miss it, and you dip into the schedule as soon as the ESPN website has them posted, and I happen to notice that. You mind if I ask you one more thing? Or
no, go right ahead.
I love college football. It is the greatest sport at the greatest level, and I just am blessed to be able to watch it every Saturday, and it's a special thing to me. But I feel some of the directions we're taking are they're not very positive, and money gets into a sport, it turns it into a business and whatnot. But your opinion on, and it took me 13 seconds to think of this when I did, as far as money and players and paying players and all the stuff that the petitions and the idea it had, I think it's this simple. I think if you took the billions that were made and put it off to the side, don't pay athletes, keep the model, and after they have finished and graduated, you give them a little bursary as per, here's for your service, and if you don't make the NFL, here's $100,000 that we earned off your likeness, and and have a nice life. I just put it aside, and then that would encourage them to go get their degree, and to and not to leave after a couple of years and whatnot. And if they make the NFL, make the NFL. If not, you got a free education plus a kickback to start the world with.
It's fascinating. It's a fascinating discussion. I tend to like it. Joe, listen, you brought a lot here. Thanks for calling. I hope you'll call back.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. We quit quit taking calls from Montgomery and Tuscaloosa and just start going to Canada more often. Let's continue with more calls. And Stephen is in Pennsylvania. Stephen, go right ahead.
Yes, I was wondering your thoughts on the Reuben Foster situation and what's going on with that.
Yeah, the story came out earlier about Reuben Foster facing some serious charges out in California. Listen, I take the same approach on any person that is charged but not convicted, and I think and I think everyone, in a perfect world has a presumption of innocence. But I'll tell you what, reading the story is just downright sickening, where he is accused of rupturing his girlfriend's eardrum, allegedly hitting her 8 to 10 times. He's got serious problems. I hope he has a good lawyer. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it very much. Jacob is in College Station, Texas. Go right ahead.
Hi, Paul. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about Jimbo Fisher and your thoughts on that. I know that a lot of your callers, especially from Alabama, probably aren't really too worried about him because especially what happened with FSU last year. But he was plagued with injuries. I feel like he built a good team and was plagued with injuries, and I think that might have contributed to it. But I just wanted to ask you, what do you think about how he'll fare, how his system, the quarterback under center pro style play will fare, or should Texas A&M expect what they saw from FSU against Alabama in the foreseeable future?
Thanks for the call, Jacob. I expect good things out of Jimbo Fisher, and I know there is some disagreement out there. The trend on how it ended at FSU was concerning. It really was. It was a bad trend those last 2 years, but I feel like I know him well enough, and I've studied his career, and I think sometimes you stay at a place a long time, and you can just get burned out. It can change you. And he went through some serious personal problems down there that have been well discussed, and I don't know whether that had a deleterious effect on his coaching or not. I have no earthly idea. But what I see from Jimbo Fisher today is a different Jimbo Fisher, and I think the enthusiasm and the energy of that program, and I think you'll see it Saturday. I saw some stat today that I think last year 12 of the luxury boxes had been reserved at Kyle Field. I think 79 have been for Saturday. I mean, there is a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm for this program, and I think it's a result of his hiring. Thank you for the call. Do appreciate it. Let's continue with more calls, and Charles is in Georgia. Hey, Charles, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
As beautiful a day as I am down here.
I bet we are.
It's one of those days that would be hard to be an atheist, I guess.
Well, I think that would be difficult anytime.
I know it. I talked to you a week or so ago with a brain teaser about officials making calls that instead of overriding them, or the possibility. I have another brain teaser for you.
Okay.
Will there ever come a day that all Division I schools will have to be in a conference, i.e. Notre Dame? Now, I know they have their big toe stuck in the ACC, but that's just about all, and not much. It seems like a different set of rules for some schools, and they certainly don't share the wealth to a lot of other schools, and they are a school unto itself that does not need the wealth. But it just is like two different playing fields. And will there ever be a day that everything, even if we have to add to and add another conference, which, I love college football, so it certainly wouldn't bother me, but I know it opens up a can of worms. What are your?
Yeah, but listen, I don't think that will be the case. I think it would be easier to legislate if everyone was. And by the way, Notre Dame's is the most confusing. For those who don't understand the situation with Notre Dame, they are independent in football. But I think every other sport they participate in the ACC, which
they do for like track and field and for
and of course in basketball.
And
there is a stipulation. I think they play 3 or 5 ACC games.
But as
whatever.
we know,
Notre Dame has done this to themselves. Though they're so greedy up there for a university that likes to pride itself on everything good in the world. Or helping everyone that needs help, that they missed the boat on the Big Ten. They should have been in the Big Ten 20 years ago. That is the natural geographical part of the country. They don't fit the ACC, but then the ACC doesn't fit. Half the schools don't fit anymore since they've gone up the East Coast. But by getting in a league, they would probably end up making more money. They think that people do not watch Notre Dame football on NBC to the degree that they used to. Now, this year was an outlier. They had a couple of pretty big games. But Notre Dame football today, compared to 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, is a shell of itself. And that's just the truth. They're just another big school that used to be somebody important. We'll take a break. More phone calls at 855-242-7285, and we are back after this.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Glad you're back with us. Minkah Fitzpatrick had a lot to say, and we'll listen back in a few minutes. He had some very revealing comments at the end of the interview about he almost did not play in the national championship game. Can you imagine how that game would have turned out without him? Let's talk to Joe in Augusta, Georgia. Joe, thank you, and good afternoon.
Hey, Mr. Paul Finebaum. I've been watching your show a long time. Just glad to be getting through to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I wanted to make a comment about Joe from Canada.
Yeah.
I'm a big-time Alabama fan, Roll Tide. I do agree that Alabama's season, schedule for this season is pretty easy. But I want to make a comment. Bring up Georgia's schedule and look at their schedule. It's almost just as easy.
Well, I'll tell you what. We will take a look at that in a minute because I have not really. I know they don't have any big games early on. They have Georgia Tech at the end of the season, which is like they have Austin Peay, Middle Tennessee, UMass, and Georgia Tech. You are 100% correct, sir.
And I just want to say it's awesome. You just made my day. I watch your show all the time. My TV's pretty much on your channel when I get off work till about 7.
Well, we appreciate you saying that. Thank you very, very much, Joe.
Thank you, Paul. Bye-bye.
It'd be great to hear from you. That's cool. Larry is up next. Larry, how are you doing?
Hey, man, I feel better. Yesterday I was pretty tired, man.
What got you so tired, Larry? I'm trying to remember.
I fished a bass tournament all day, and I bombed out. I bombed out.
Larry, I thought fishing was recreation, not like a workout.
Well, it was for money, and I bombed out, and I got my butt kicked. And when I come home, I drank a few beers. And
how do you get your butt kicked, Larry, at a fishing tournament?
Well, they weigh in more fish, and you better more weight than you weigh in. You only get to weigh in 5. You fish from daylight. I got up at 4 o'clock yesterday morning. You fish from daylight till 3, and I got beat. I had 2 lousy little peckers.
Larry, do you ever get out of the boat?
Yeah, I was fishing in my boat. I got a brand new boat.
Like once you get out there, can you take a break? Like go out for lunch and come back?
I could come up to my house. I live on the river and come up in here. Yeah. But I can't drink or nothing. I can eat a sandwich.
So was that the hardest? Was that the hardest part, Larry? Fishing without a Bud Light?
Yeah, it's tough, especially when you're getting whooped. You're getting slapped around, and the fish are beating you. They're just like beating you, man. And then yesterday I want to man my fences with Big Ten John and
Larry, mea culpas don't look good on you, man.
I know. I don't want to do that stupid stuff.
Yeah.
I know. But I do want to
stay your lovable, cantankerous self, okay?
I am. I'm going back to me. But I do want to say one thing.
I will say this, though.
What?
And you don't want to hear it, but I think John could probably take you in a bass fishing contest.
Oh, no. That's out. Yeah, no.
I doubt John's ever been bass fishing in his life, but I bet he could still handle it. And you know why, Larry?
Why?
Do we have a picture of Larry anywhere? Okay. We're going to show a picture of Larry for those. That's a picture of Larry right there. Imagine him on a boat at 5 a.m. And, just take a look at this guy right here. And then we're going to go into the newsroom, the control room, and take a look at John Hayes. So you're telling me that guy, John Hayes, could not whip Larry? John, have you ever fished?
I haven't gone bass fishing, no, but I like to think, just based on what we're talking about here, my boat would be zipping across the lake while Larry's would be, lagging behind.
Yeah, way faster. Faster.
Yeah. Well, you know what you would be doing, John? You would be looking forward, and Larry would still be bragging. Hey, Bama beat y'all last year.
Larry, so you entered a bass fishing tournament here for cash, and you only came home with 2 little fishies, huh? Is that what happened, Larry?
Well, Paul, you have to tell everything to that Yankee. You have to tell everything. I mean, he didn't have to hear that, Paul.
I mean, Larry, you got taken at the bass fishing contest, my man.
Yeah, and it was by probably a dang Yankee. But if I went fishing when you big turn, John, if I didn't do any good, you wouldn't come back. Just like
it's not like I haven't heard that one before, Larry. Get some new material, buddy.
How about this one? How about y'all slow down in the control room so somebody can understand what you're saying? I don't have a clue what that guy said about Ireland, and I don't know what you said, but you're talking so fast, jibber-jabber. Y'all slow down a little bit so I can understand
try
it.
To slow down for
we
you,
will not
Larry.
talk fast anymore.
There. Thank you. And so, now, you winter liquors, let me ask you a question. The golf tournament's on, and we're playing for the Green Jackets.
We don't want to hear about this, Larry. You're a loser. You got. I don't want to hear about this golf. We want
to know how much you ponied up to get into the bass fishing tournament. How much did it cost you?
I have $105.
What was the prize?
About $800 or $900.
Nice.
So you paid $52.50 per fish.
Larry, why don't you go down to the local pub, pay somebody to beat you up? It's about the same thing.
Thank you, Paul. That really made me feel good yesterday when I come in just whooped. And then now today you take me.
Hey, Larry, do you realize this is 2018? And bass fishermen. I watch this stuff on television. I mean, they're in good shape. They work out.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to get into tip-top shape by chugging down beers, Larry. You got to go to the gym, man.
Yeah, I know, man. I need to get Big Ten John and show me some workout like they do on TV. Maybe help me out, work out.
Why don't you? I mean, Larry, when's the last time you went to the gym and worked out?
I can't remember. Back before this show, come on.
So, what do you do? What do you do for physical fitness?
Raise my right arm several times a day, and then raise my left arm to get the
Larry, do me Larry. Let's put your hands out right in front of you, like you're about to die. How far can you lift them up? Okay.
As far as I can lift them. Don't embarrass me.
No, Larry, I'm concerned about you because we don't need to lose you here.
Okay, I got it up.
No, I don't want to hear that, Larry. I promise you. We are going to a break.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
I just looked down on the board, guys, and saw a name I have not seen in a long time. He's a Florida Gator fan. He talked a lot of smack about how the Gators would beat everyone up, and then when they didn't, he disappeared. He's a Duke basketball fan. He talked about how Duke would beat everyone up, and then they didn't. He disappeared. So welcome back, Lance. I hope you've had a good fall and winter.
How's your Kentucky team doing, Paul? John Calipari should be fired, man. Come on. You went 38-0, and he still ain't done nothing yet.
Man, you're so aggressive there.
Come on, man.
How you doing, Lance? Forget all that stuff. Are you doing okay?
I'm doing great, man. I mean, it's hard to get on this show, man. You don't understand. I ain't been ducking you, man. It's hard to get on the show, man.
Okay.
Last time I talked to you was LSU Florida week.
Yeah.
We got a new coach. And I don't know, man. That Matt Baker, man, got me fired up, inspired me to call. I mean, that guy needs to hawk up, shut the hell up, man. For anyone to say Felipe Franks is the most talented quarterback on our roster, shouldn't be allowed to talk about football, man.
So now you're a constitutional lawyer, huh?
Well, I'm just telling you right now, man, you would be banned for talking football. Everybody in Gainesville knows. Emory Jones is the next talent. I mean, this guy, come on, Paul. When he gets outside the pocket,
who did you have as the start? Who did you have as the best quarterback last year? I'm trying to remember.
I said Felipe Franks to start.
Yeah.
Was I right? I mean, when all your guests are talking about,
I think Florida ended up starting about 4 different quarterbacks. So I guess you were
when
right.
Y'all are giving Malik Zaire a little public love, Pat Dooley was scratching his head. Paul Finebaum didn't know what to do. I mean, man, don't start on me, man. When it comes to Gator football, there ain't nobody know it better, Paul. Don't act like they don't, man. All your guests were giving you Malik Zaire.
It's okay. Hey, Lance, we got enough. There's enough commentators that talk about how right they are about it. Let me ask you a question, Lance. Tell me what Florida is going to do this year on the field, okay?
I'm going to tell you what they're going to do. They're definitely going to be improved on offense. You know why? Because we upgraded at every position on offensive staff. I mean, Dan Mullen did a complete upgrade on his offensive staff. And another thing
are you going to be able to beat Georgia this year, Lance, is the question? Because I think Georgia pretty much owned you last year.
Yeah, but we all know that ain't normal, Paul. They get lucky and beat us 1 out of 5 years. I mean,
Lance, I was at the national championship game this year. I saw Georgia down there. I didn't see you.
You seen Georgia? Did you see them get beat on another Hail Mary? I mean, if they could defend a Hail Mary, they'd be dangerous. I mean, they want to talk about that defensive coach down there. I mean, come on, man. Hunker down, baby. Hunker down. Are they still hunkered down, Paul?
They had the best. They have the best young recruiting coach in America. Hey, Lance, slow down, pal. Okay. Tell me how your program, Lance. Tell me how your program is going to be able to stop Georgia's juggernaut in recruiting. Okay.
Well, let's toss on the field. And when you put somebody like Emory Jones
I'm not hearing anything, Lance, because you know Kirby Smart is the best young recruiter in America right now. You do know that, don't you?
I do know that. And I understand Florida ain't got 3 years to catch up. I understand this year is as important as ever. I understand these next 2 years are going to be critical to the SEC. I ain't damn dumb, Paul. I mean, but if you want to celebrate second place, that's a classic damn Georgia fan.
They won the SEC, Lance. Slow down, man.
Wow.
Okay, Lance.
25 years?
Hey, Lance, let me ask you a question. When is the last time your school won the SEC championship?
08.
08 was what, 8 years ago, 10 years ago? I can't remember. 10 years ago.
Yeah, hey, Paul. Before last year, Georgia winning the SEC. We've won 2 national titles since they won the SEC.
Yeah.
Don't come in here beating your mouth over Georgia, man. They got
10 years in the rearview mirror, Lance, and you're still talking smack.
You put them in a big game.
Hey, Lance, have you heard the show lately?
Yeah, man.
There's a new sheriff. Hey,
you need some fire, baby. You need some fire on this show.
There's a new sheriff. Hey, Lance, there's a new sheriff of Smack Talk. This guy Matt in Gainesville, Georgia.
Oh, I'm scared to death, Paul. Smack Talk ain't my thing. I really like to talk football.
Lance, you don't sound good. You sound like you're living in fear of Matt and Daryl from Columbus.
Don't live in fear of nobody. We got damn oil. That's a ham, son. This guy can coach. Are you kidding me?
See, Lance, it's not as much fun talking smack. It's not as much fun talking smack when you won 4 games last year.
Well, damn, that ain't my fault. I don't coach the team, Paul. With Doug Nussmeyer waiting in bed every other Saturday, hell, nobody could call plays down there. Are you kidding me? That wasn't reflective on our talent. That was a reflective of our poor-ass coaching staff. Don't put it on my damn players.
Now you're turning on the coaches. That's a loyal fan. I love it.
Hey, I took up with Jim McElwain more than anybody. I supported Jim McElwain more than anybody.
I know.
But damn, man, when you get
now you're selling them out like a day old bread.
Hey, when you can't score a point in the fourth quarter against LSU at home, your ass deserves to be fired, Paul. Anybody can coach better than that. Give me a damn break. You had 3rd and 3, 4th and 3, and you ran the same damn play twice. Come on, man. Use the littlest receiver you have to go across the middle. That makes a lot of damn sense.
Hey, thanks, Lance. Always a pleasure. Can't wait to talk again soon. 1 hour to go.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top. It was BYOG, bring your own guts.
This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
1 more hour to go. We welcome all of you back. We've had a great show. Minkah Fitzpatrick dropped by. More guests to come, and we'll continue with your phone calls right now. And how about Gooch in Oxford, Mississippi? How are you, Gooch? Gooch, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Go right ahead.
Great. Yeah, I'm just sitting down here in the Memphis television zone. You know, just like you and me, we grew up in the same viewing area around here. 3, 5, and 13. Which was your favorite channel back in the day?
That's a good question. Wrestling was on Channel 13, so my buddies, we would watch that on Saturday morning. But I think my parents always had they kind of bounced back and forth between 3 and 5.
Yeah, you remember it moved over to Channel 5 on Union Avenue back in the day.
Oh yeah, I've been there many times.
Got big. Yeah, awesome. But anyway, my big question.
That's where they had the only reason I know all this is they had like the children's shows on back when I was a kid, so you'd go there and be in the audience.
Yeah, I got that video. I'm gonna send it to you one day. I got 2 of them, a copy of them, but my friends have borrowed them and I hadn't got them back. It's called Memphis Heat. It's about the wrestling back in the day. It's awesome. I think it won some kind of backroom Grammy back in the day. But Larry is a true American genius. We're all crappie fishing over here in Mississippi. Right?
That's right.
My question to you, Paul, is. We got, I like the call from the lady yesterday. I don't remember her name, talking about the politics, talking about, Jim's butt. But, anyway, hey, what, I'm an Ole Miss third-generation graduate. Why? They never come out with a list of what we actually did. But this Dan Walken and this Thomas Mars have some kind of vendetta against Ole Miss. And it seems to be personal in some way, and I don't understand it.
Well, Thomas Mars is the attorney. He was Houston Nutt's attorney. He's now, Shea Patterson's attorney. He represents, I'm trying to think of how many times he sued Ole Miss in the last couple of years.
Yeah, but what? I mean, come on. What does he do, Paul? I mean, I
don't know. I've never met him. I've heard of. I know a lot about him because it's hard to miss him right now if you follow sports.
Well, get back to my TV. Does he have a commercial? Let's call Schwartz or 876-5301.
Well, listen. I understand. I read Woken's article the other day. He was very critical of Ole Miss in terms. He's not the only one, by the way. A lot of people don't agree with Ole Miss's position.
Well, I wish the best for Shea. I really do. He's a great guy. I know him. I've met him. But it's not him. It's not Ole Miss that's doing this. It's just the NCAA rules. And they suck. I know that. But it's just what it is. But the thing that goes back to all this stuff about freeze and all that, that's over. It's done. And we're moving on. And these guys just keep wanting to drag it out.
Well, first of all, Gooch, nobody's dragging it out. Ole Miss has filed an appeal. Had they accepted the penalties, the case would be over. They filed the appeal. The case is still ongoing, and that's really why you will continue to hear about this until the case is finally adjudicated. Thank you for the call, though. Appreciate it. Jefferson is in Oxford, and you're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. I was just calling. Well, first of all, I appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you.
Second of all, I promise to make more use of my time than Blake from Tennessee. Kind of like Gooch, who just called you, I want to talk about the national media narrative with the Ole Miss Shea Patterson situation and kind of the articles that are being written right now Some that can come to my head, like Gooch said, Dan Walken, USA Today Sports, Casey Smith, the Barstool Sports. Most of them are very negative towards Ole Miss, and they're leaving about 3 important facts that you just had Barrett on air, and I don't want to mispronounce his last name. I think it's
Barrett Salee.
Salee, and he made some good points that are getting left out of a lot of these articles. And the first one is that Ole Miss, like obviously Ole Miss cannot block any of the transfers.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I did a show yesterday, and the guy said, "What's wrong? Why is Ole Miss doing this?" And I tried to explain, and it was like the guy thought I was stealing from him.
Right, and that's the thing is like they're like you said, they're currently in the middle of the appeal, and in Shea Patterson's appeal that has nothing to do with Ole Miss to the NCAA, his claim to why he should start the first year is that a bunch of just negative allegations against Ole Miss.
But something, Jefferson, you've actually raised the most salient point I've heard. There is a disconnect, and the national media has been on, and I know I sound like I'm on Fox News right now railing against the White House, but I'm not. The national media, and you mentioned some of them, they have railed against Ole Miss, and and they feel like they've been vindicated by the penalties being corroborated. Now, again, it's still under appeal. So, in the Woken article, I mean, he did call Ross Bjork, but there's nothing Ross Bjork can say.
Correct.
Most clients do not talk while they're under investigation. There's one exception in the country right now.
Correct, and that's the thing is, in the position Ole Miss is currently under the appeal, they have no choice but to refute these claims.
Absolutely.
And in my opinion, that's my second point here is I honestly see some truth in the Ole Miss's claims of refuting it because the timeline of Shea Patterson's recruitment, so he verbally committed to Ole Miss in February of 15. His brother was hired onto a recruiting position in March of 2015. Then Shea Patterson did not sign until January of 2016. And the second NOA didn't.
Yeah, no. This is after the. I mean, listen. I know you're absolutely right about this. I think. Yeah. I mean, but here's the problem at Ole Miss, and I'm there's so many things that have happened. They all get lumped together, and then Freeze gets fired for something that had nothing to do with anything else, and it's all in one little bottle.
It's in one bubble.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I think it's an unfair bubble because the thing that Shea is stating in his argument is that we lied to him while he was recruiting.
Right.
Well, he was verbally committed before he signed to Ole Miss for 9 months while his brother was on the staff, the recruiting staff. I feel like a lot of things no one's realizing his brother would have definitely known if there was anything that he would have been misled about. It's his own family.
No, listen, these are very good points. I'm glad we were able to talk about it because I think if you're racing down the street and you're looking at this story on your phone as you're walking, you think Ole Miss is wrong.
Correct.
If you digest what you've just said and think about what's really going on, there's a totally different meaning. But the biggest misconception is what you've already said. Ole Miss has nothing to do with whether Shea Patterson plays at Michigan or not.
Exactly. And that's the third thing. The only last thing I want to say is there's getting a lot of negative press. I mean, like this whole conversation has been about towards Ole Miss. And I think a real example of someone being blocked to transfer that was actually a wrongdoing, people need to research what Baker Mayfield endured at Texas Tech before he transferred to Oklahoma. That was actually a school blocking the transfer. And I think that school would have deserved this negative attention more than Ole Miss.
Listen, great call, Jefferson. Thank you very much for shining a little bit of light on the story. Art is up next. Art, welcome to the show. Good afternoon.
Thanks again, Paul. Listen, buddy, I've been calling in for like the last couple of years, and I've never gotten through. I've gotten through twice in like 2 days.
I'm glad to hear.
I know. I mean, but like the last time this happened, Larry was telling about his drinking buddy. Now he's telling him about his getting his ass kicked fishing. I mean, I just don't want any more sad episodes. You know? I mean, really. You know, I was a kid to sign over. The dynasty's over, and Dad looks over at his paper. You know, I mean, so I've been around here, and I know I don't want to. I mean, I don't know what's going on, but I've been doing nothing. Hello?
Yeah, no, we're Art.
I mean, you know, like
the
rain base that dog feeds them. They got greens and cornbread, you know, and I think that's obvious. But
yeah,
I mean, as far as the show, I mean, this has been going on a long time. And, I'm just saying. I mean, hey, you bathed a lot of animals, Paul. You know you have.
I'm trying to replicate Noah's Ark.
No, you don't replicate anything like that. But, I mean, you can easily – I think that you should tell your listeners that maybe they don't really want sad episodes. I mean, they really don't. I mean, you can talk about it, but, Paul, I mean, this has been going on a long time. And I've been doing nothing. Hell no. So, anyway.
Glad you straightened that out, Art. We were hanging on the seat of the edge of our seat, waiting for the end of that call. Worm is up next. I mean, anybody? We got a squirrel. We got a worm. How'd you get your nickname?
Well, Paul, I'll tell you. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
Good. Well, I got my nickname back in high school. I blew my shoulder out.
Oh, my goodness.
And after I had where there was no orthoscopic surgery in 1979.
No.
So it looked like I had a Frankenstein scar on my right shoulder. And a good friend of mine, Scott Morona, said, "Hey, that looks like a worm." And so anybody that knows me calls me Worm from then on out.
That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah. I don't know how Squirrel got his. I can't imagine a scar looking like a squirrel, but nonetheless.
No, I think he.
Hey, Paul,
I think he mistake.
Can I say this real quick? I drive a
please.
truck for a living. I'm from Huntsville, but right now I drove across the state of Louisiana, and I go into Texas every week. Paul, I can't pick you up in Louisiana crossing the 2059 corridor from Monroe through Shreveport. What's going on with that? Do you know?
Where do you normally listen to us?
I listen to you on. Of course, I listen to you on the ESPN, The Zone in Huntsville, and I listen to you on the one in Birmingham.
Okay.
I don't have the Sirius radio,
right?
And I can pick you up in Mississippi.
Yeah,
but I cannot pick you up in Louisiana.
Yeah,
so I use my
I'll
phone.
double check on that, Worm. We were on stations all over the place, but there's some change. But I'll check on that one. I tell you what. The best, really, it's easy to listen to us on your phone if you have one.
Yeah, that's what I have to do. But normally I just. But anyway, hey, let me get to my point.
Okay.
Lance, I know exactly who he is, and if I'm wrong, then you got to prove it. But you need to Google Redneck Ninja. I mean, this guy's even been on Jerry Springer, but that is Lance through and through. I know it's him. I can tell by his voice.
That's R-E.
And you got to pull it up. Yeah.
D.
And but if you Google it, Redneck Ninja, you'll love it. But look, Paul, I'll let you go, man, because you got more important callers than me. But I really appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you. We hope you find us when you're crossing the line. Bill Bender. I don't know why that. Anyway, Bill Bender will join us from the Sporting News. He'll give us his thoughts on the upcoming college football season. Yes, we're about to actually say that and be legitimate. The upcoming college football season. He's next.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. Glad
everyone is back. We are pretty fired up that the upcoming football season is slowly getting into focus, and it is when friends of ours like Bill Bender of the Sporting News start projecting things. Bill, it's been a long off season. A lot of good things have happened, but college football is finally coming into focus. Seems like you've been spending a little time thinking about it. Good afternoon.
Yeah, Paul, thanks for having me on. It's never too early to think about that, and plenty of early season predictions for everybody.
Well, let's talk. We'll eventually get to what we all need to know right now, and that's who's going to win the national championship in January 2019. But let's take it step by step. You've looked at all the conferences, especially the Power Five, isolated the teams that you think are going to emerge. So since we spend a little bit of time on the SEC here, and it's probably the easiest to predict, why don't you start there?
Well, I'm wondering how many listeners you have won't pick Alabama, Georgia. I just see two teams played in the national championship game last year. Alabama's loaded with talent. I know the quarterback's a question, but I don't think it really matters. And then Georgia, build up what they had last year. Jake Fromm's back, strong on both sides. It would be a shock to me if they weren't playing in Atlanta for the SEC championship. And keep in mind, last year they were the top two teams in the first two sets of college football playoff rankings. I think there's a possibility they could both get the playoff again.
Yeah, and we took a look earlier, Bill, as I'm sure you have. They're not exactly playing giants non-conference. Georgia Tech for Georgia, that's a standard game. They don't have the Notre Dame game like they did last year. In Alabama against Louisville, the least impressive opener for Alabama in many, many years.
Yeah, they're really heavily favored in that game, too. And obviously with Lamar Jackson not there, that will make them a very big favorite. And we know that Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide always have a tendency to make that big statement in the opener. So I was trying to figure out who would challenge these teams within the division. I think from Georgia, it may come from South Carolina. And then I think with Alabama, it may come from, the usual suspects. Auburn will be pretty good. LSU has some talent. And if you want to throw Mississippi State as a dark horse, that's fine. But I still don't see a way where it's not Georgia and Alabama in the championship game.
No, it is hard to imagine. Okay, so that's the SEC. Let's move to the ACC, where I'm sure one side of it is going to be fairly easy. But take us through that league.
Well, how am I not going to pick Clemson? I mean, look at their schedule. You want to talk about a decent look at it anyway. No Friday games. They got the game against Texas A&M early, but I think they're the prohibitive favorite given the guys they have coming back. I mean, you're looking at a team with potentially 4 first-rounders on their defensive line. That's unheard of. And then I think on the other side, it'll be Miami, Virginia Tech, probably at the top. But I like where the Hurricanes are. I think Mark Richt is going to, learn from last year's late-season collapse, but I still don't know if that's enough to catch the Tigers.
So it looks fairly similar there as well. Let's see if we can continue this track. Big Ten, Ohio State, something tells me that we'll hear their name mentioned in a minute.
Well, I think Ohio State's got the talent. They've got a quarterback race going with 3 guys. Whoever takes over there is going to be set up for success. On defense, you have Nick Bosa, potential number 1 pick. I think Chase Young could be a breakout star for them. It's big to lose. And again, they're in that tough division. And then I think on the other side, Wisconsin has an easier road in the West and has been very good, but it's on them to win the Big Ten championship before they take that next step. I told this to Peter before I came on. I mean, I would put Michigan as the second team if Shea Patterson is eligible because I think they have the defense, and they were pretty close with Ohio State 2 years ago, but they absolutely need a better play out of their quarterback in 2018.
Yeah, I'd like to stop there, Bill, because are there any other conferences in the Power 5? Oh, I'm sorry, there are 2 more. Let's go to the Power Conference that occasionally gets a team in the playoff. Oklahoma was the participant last year. What about the Big 12?
Well, it's hard not to say Oklahoma and everybody else because I think that's just been the standard. Lincoln Riley picked it up. They get Kyler Murray's going to replace Baker Mayfield and put up big numbers. So when you say TCU could challenge or Oklahoma State could challenge or even Texas with Tom Herman, and I think they'll be better in his second season, that's fine. But I think it's on one of these teams to kind of break up this Oklahoma dynasty. And really, when you're talking about teams that I actually believe could win 2 playoff games, I think Oklahoma's the only team out of the Big 12 that I think that could be the case.
And before you even identify the 2 from the Pac-12, has there been a more maligned league in sports? I mean, it goes for everything, frankly. I may be missing some minor sports, but basketball was a washout. We know about football. Talk a little bit about the Pac-12. Good coaches now with Chip Kelly and others in the league.
Sure. The Washington-Auburn game is huge for that conference on so many levels because let's say Washington loses there and then they win the Pac-12. I still think they'll be punished more for losing to Auburn than they would winning the Pac-12. I hope that makes some level of sense.
Sure.
Washington and Stanford will both be pretty good. Stanford's got Bryce Love. He was in the Heisman mix. I think USC has some talent, but I don't know if they're good enough to beat Stanford and Washington next year. But again, Washington, we talked about this 2 years ago. It was great that they made the playoff, but was there anybody that believed that they were going to beat Alabama, let alone win 2 football games in the college football playoff?
No.
Yeah, that's the thing. And so I think it's on this league. That's why that Auburn game is such a statement game for the conference, coming off a wretched bowl season, coming off, not making the playoff, and wondering what the future of that league is in this pecking order of the Power 5.
So we've heard the two from each league, who makes the playoffs and ultimately who will win the national championship.
Well, I think there's the list of teams that I think truly should be considered national championship contenders. I can give you off one hand. I think it's Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. Now, something could happen on the road where one or two of those teams doesn't make the playoff, but those are the 5 teams I think that are set up that you can actually remember. It's not just making the playoff; you have to win both. Now that I say that, we'll probably have the craziest college football season of all time, and none of those teams will make it.
Do you have a feeling? I mean, of that group. I mean, is it just too cliche to go Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, or do you think anyone really projecting into the season will have separated itself before we even start?
Well, I think one, Clemson, I mentioned that defensive line, and that's the first thing. The 2 things I look at with a team are 1, quarterback, and 2, defensive line. If you have both at a very high level, you're going to be really good. And I think Alabama and Clemson are going to be very good up front. And then I think at quarterback, when you look at if Tua Tagovailoa takes that next step, becomes a Heisman contender, lives up to all this hype that we're piling on him, it could be truly special offense in Alabama. And then Clemson, once we get a look at Trevor Lawrence, you wonder if he's going to compete with Kelly Bryant. They have 4 guys that can run the football. So what I'm telling you, Paul, I think we're in for Clemson, Alabama 4 on some level if I was predicting the championship game right now.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, it's hard to go against that. I was talking to people in Clemson yesterday, and that's what you hear. You hear the defensive line over and over and over again, and there's no way to get around it.
Well, these are the 2 teams, all things even, have the most talent. Alabama's offense, as we've talked about and we all saw, had a bunch of young playmakers playing in the national in the toughest spot of the season. Young playmakers in the national championship game. Then on the other side, Clemson, they were able to pull the top player out of 5 different states in the last cycle. I think they're built to last. Dabo's got a machine going there, and when they play again, if they play again, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't like last year where the defense is dominating. It takes that 1, 2, 3 plays that make a difference.
Bill, we will check back in with you soon. Thanks for your time. Really a lot to chew on there. I hope you're well.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Paul.
Great stuff. Bill Bender from the Sporting News getting you ready for the college football season. Seems like we just left off with the same teams. Alabama and Clemson. Are you ready for that game again? We'll take a break. More to come.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Welcome back to the program. Phil has been holding on from Philadelphia. Phil in Philadelphia. That makes a lot of sense. How are you, Phil?
Hey, Paul. How are you?
We are doing fantastic. Thank you.
I got a quick question for you. Do you think former LSU player Ben Simmons will be the 2018 Rookie of the Year?
Okay, let me go ask one of our compatriots in the other room who's from Philadelphia. My sense is he will. I know he's got a lot of competition. John, this is controversial.
I think, yes, he will be the Rookie of the Year because there's a statistic that's been put out there that is absolutely phenomenal. He's the first rookie to average 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists in a very long time. In a very, very long time. There's about 5 or 6 guys who have done that, Paul. It's Oscar Robinson. It's Magic Johnson. It's LeBron James. It's a really, really small group of guys, and I think that stat puts him ahead of Donovan Mitchell.
And he's been doing it all year, too.
Right. And people are arguing that Ben Simmons is not a rookie.
Sure he is.
Here's my problem with that argument. Don't hate the player, hate the game. If you've got a problem with it, take it up with Adam Silver. Don't take it out on Ben Simmons.
Blake Griffin did the same thing.
He did.
Won the Rookie of the Year in his second year.
Yeah, but both guys deserve it.
Squirrel is up next.
I like that. Don't hate the player, hate the game. That's deep.
Original.
Great show today, and each day the show is a little different. With all this fish talk, it kind of has an outdoor theme today to me. It seems like
it does. Well, it's springtime.
Yeah. Have you fished much in your life, Paul? I know you caught that buck of tuna.
When I was young, I used to go fishing with my dad all the time. I don't think I have gone fishing in recent memory.
Do you fish like rivers, or did y'all fish in rivers or lakes?
We would finish. We did lakes, rivers, and then obviously oceans.
Around Memphis.
My uncle had a place at Pickwick Lake. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, that's beautiful over there.
Yeah, so we spent a little bit of time up there.
Y'all were catching smallmouth. You were catching crappie, maybe a bass, a catfish.
That was a great place.
Brim, bluegill, those type things. Awesome. Larry's tired because he bass fishing and tournament fishing. I've never done it, but I've observed it.
Oh yeah,
that's hard fishing. I mean, them dudes. They're trying to cast as fast as they can. I mean, they almost fish too hard. You know what I mean? They need to slow down and relax a little bit. And I had a nice boat. I kept that on the coast. I lost it during Katrina. But I'll tell you what I did and what I was going to suggest to you and to Larry. I bought me a couple of kayaks a couple of years ago, some fishing kayaks. And, I live in a little lake community here in Mississippi. And so I just take the kayak down to the lake. And just
I'm going to have to I'm going to go back to my youth and start fishing again, since I can't do much else.
You need to get a kayak. You're a kayak-type guy. That's what I'm saying. You don't need a bass boat with a 200-horsepower motor, jet across the lake at 100 miles an hour. You need a kayak and just paddle.
Now that I've given up golf, I think fishing is my new pastime.
Observe nature. Yeah, I mean, I'm serious when I say that. You really need to look into that. It'd be a good pastime, good way to relieve stress.
Yeah, well... It would be a good start, I guess.
And we all have stress in our lives every once in a while. Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, thank you very much. Great stuff. Greg. Yeah, Greg, do you fish?
I do, and you'll like it because there's no one you have to wait. You don't have to wait on anybody to play through.
Hey, I tell you what. The last time I was on a lake, it was actually up near you. We went up to Lake Gunnersville a couple of years ago. And went out.
Yes,
you talk about a beautiful place. That was unbelievable.
Oh, yes. We used to go to summer camp up there. I think it was Camp Naoti. And we used to go out on canoes and fish near the milfoil, and you could catch crappie and
that place was spectacular. I really loved it. I know you're a little bit north of that, but still.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place. I think the call that I enjoyed today the most was the blind.
Was that fabulous or what? Yeah. For those who missed it, a man called earlier. He was a law enforcement officer. He lost his eyesight, and he took us through. I asked him a few questions about it, and ultimately he started training seeing eye dogs.
Yeah, it was great, and I had a doctor's appointment today, and my doctor happens to be a Finebaum fan.
Really?
So she said to tell you hello.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, Dr. Marlia McAnally. So,
how cool!
Yeah, so I noticed yesterday on Twitter there was a report about 4 Mississippi State students who decided to visit Alabama's equipment or facilities after hours. And if they really wanted to get that close to see a real championship trophy, if they go during the daytime, they'll let them right in.
Yeah, you're right. That is a story that broke overnight, and I'm sure that the University of Alabama would welcome them in. They'd probably even offer the 4 students from Mississippi State a chance to watch the end of the game in Starkville this year that Jalen Hurts played such a big role in.
Exactly, and if they wanted to come down on A-Day next week, they will let you go down there and get your picture next to the real championship trophy. So I just thought that was kind of funny. And one last thing, I know Matt called earlier and he got cut off short, and he's in the numbers, so I'll let him know that it's been 3,850 days since Georgia beat Alabama, so he can let that simmer for a while. Have a great day, Paul.
Thank you. Great stuff. That is funny. Jimmy is in Chicago.
Hey, Paul. Well, Squirrel mentioned the outdoor theme of today's show. It's funny because my dad used to take me fishing at Pickwick.
Oh, wow.
When I was a kid.
How cool.
Yeah, and a couple of times, too, over, by Shiloh. And I remember one time we fishing was nearly, it got dark and so forth, and I kind of had this eerie feeling because, you knew that they had the 2 famous Civil War battles at Shiloh.
Oh, man.
And you knew the night before that the Union and Confederate troops, were positioned maybe less than a mile away, and they were each singing songs. They could hear each other, and just to think, golly, back 100 years or so, that over 100 years, but on this same spot, people were right here wondering if they would still be alive this time today or not. It was just kind of just the historic, significance, just of that area of land and so forth. And of course, Grant, he headquartered on Cherry Mansion, before the battle there. He was set up there and so forth. But John was talking about the spring games at Michigan, Iowa, and so forth getting canceled. And I got to tell you, today, as I speak, it's like 58, and it felt like 70 because, it's just been so cold. And it started this year around November 15th. Although the calendar, winter doesn't begin until December 22nd, and it has not let up. And after starting Saturday, it's going to be back in the 30s. So on the 15th, we're looking at a cool 5-month winter we've enjoyed here.
No, listen, even where I am, it's been really cool. It finally warmed up today, but I have been to Chicago often in the spring, and it's still winter.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had a couple of July 4th fireworks shows where, everybody was jacket, sweatshirts, that type of thing. It just never goes away, and, man, forget the wind ever going away.
No.
But yeah, one thing, your conversation with Bill Bender was interesting, but one thing I can't get out of my mind about Georgia, though, is that they are going to have to replace 31 seniors. Boy, that's a lot of experience.
I think you're right about that. And I'm not coming off of the predictions on Georgia, but you're basing a lot of your know-how on them on projection, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But some defensive players that were critical. We know about the offense. I think we focus in on the quarterback situation, but we don't even know who the quarterback's going to be.
Well, I can't imagine. I mean, it's not going to be Fromm because this guy is a great passer. And you've got a guy, Fields, I mean, he's never even played in a college game yet. But I guess my question is that outside of Swift, I really haven't heard much about who else they're looking for to come through for them at running back because injuries are.
No, you're right. The one thing I will say, though, and we talked about it a couple of times, Jimmy, their schedule is so tailor-made. Other than the South Carolina game, that would be a vulnerable spot because of inexperience. But after that, they're in pretty good shape. We are up against a break. J.K. Scott will join us tomorrow. He had a prayer session with President Trump earlier in the week at the White House. He'll tell us all about it.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Hey, it's been a good one. Hope you have been with us throughout the afternoon. Some great calls, some great guests as well. Let's head up to Maine. Always a place you expect a good conversation on a sports show. Blair is up next. How are you, Blair?
What's going on, my man, Paul?
How's everything up there?
How you doing, Paul?
We're doing great.
Yeah, well, my mom's cooking me some chicken today instead of some meatloaf. Like your guy said it.
The meatloaf!
Meatloaf?
Hey, Mom!
We want
we get
chicken.
some meatloaf?
Mom, cook me some chicken, Mom. Cook me some chicken,
we
Mom.
Want it now!
Blair, did you get everything with Mom straightened out?
Yeah, I did.
Tell John Hayes to calm down, will you?
Yeah, I did.
Good. Glad to hear.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah, Blair.
Are you an MLB fan? Are you with all these players throwing the ball and hitting these players when they're at bat at the home plate?
Not a big fan. Not a big fan, but I am a Yankees fan. If that ruins your day.
Oh yeah, let's go Red Sox! Yeah, baby, let's go Red Sox tonight! Woohoo! We're ready to smoke you again. What about that 14-1? Yeah,
hey,
you're right.
You ever heard having a bad day, Blair?
Another night.
You probably have heard about having a bad day. Let's continue with more calls.
We're going to wipe your butts this year and smoke them.
Lewis is up next in South Carolina. Hello, Lewis.
Hello, Mr. Paul. Good to talk to you. Had a great show.
Thank you.
Your tie looks real good. I like
Thank you.
that.
Thank you very much.
And this is very ironic. I live on beautiful Lake Murray. I'm sitting outside of the boathouse man cave. Me and my buddy Mike Thomas got lines in the water.
Oh, wow.
Fishing for brim. I can sit here and look at the lake, turn another way and look at the TV and see your smiling face. But we really enjoying the show.
Thank you very, very much.
But what I'll tell you, and this is afterthought, talking about you a Yankee fan. I grew up in Sumter, South Carolina. Bobby Richardson, as you know, was a great Christian.
Of course.
He went to Grace Baptist Church in Sumter.
Did he really?
Well, yes, sir, where I grew up. And I guess I was 10, 11 years old. And anytime Bobby
he was the star of one of the world's as a young kid. He was the star of one of the World Series. I can't remember which one it was, but
yes, sir. He hit a grand slam home run, and I think it was 58. I'm not certain. And then he came back up to bat with the bases loaded and hit a single, and he won the most valuable player award.
I remember Bobby well.
Series. And Bill Mazeroski hit a home run to win the World Series for the Pirates.
Probably the most famous walk-off ever.
Yeah, but that was an afterthought. But we sitting here on beautiful Lake Murray trying to catch a fish.
Yeah, boy, Lewis, do I ever hate to have to interrupt you, but we are done for the show. Thank you so much.
The brand new. Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.